Oh. Getting
Ring,
cute,
ring,
I
ring.
see.
Ring, 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 hello simps and merchanators, and welcome back to Krown's magical but also extremely serious,
And respectful.
no laughs allowed,
Mm-hmm.
Crypto Cave!
Welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel. It is a lovely Saturday morning over here from a very snowy and very difficult to walk around Helsinki, Finland. Anyways, plenty to speak about today as we do have a major time frame closing today, the 5-day time frame, which is going to really propel the biases for the next 5, maybe even 10 days to come. And obviously that's going to fit into the 2-day time frame analysis as well. So I want to present the case as what's most likely in this next week, maybe a little bit longer than a week period, and follow up on the short term as well, which literally nothing's changed in short term. All right, sweet. So before I get into it, I should denote that we do have a Black Friday sale going on for the next week. So no FOMOing. Don't fucking FOMO. Instead, watch the promos. Yeah, there we go. There we go. As with any one of the programs, any one of the indicators, they all come with promotional videos in here on the Krown Trading application, which you can find in the link in the description below. I humbly request that you never, ever, 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 ever purchase anything for myself without first watching these, because it is very important to actually understand what you're getting yourself into. I understand that there's a lot of excitement around these things, and yes, I'm very, very proud of especially the Quant program and the TA program, and basically everything really, but those are like my two babies, my two legendary babies. But ultimately, please watch the promotional videos so that you actually understand what you're getting yourself into. All right, sweet. So let's just jump right into the charts. I wanted to start off today with the biggest, baddest, heaviest time frame that we have, which is actually closing tonight, which is the 5-day time frame. And we've been following this sort of a template of a signal setup over here on a volatility versus stochastic momentum signature. Again, to explain it, we do have the volatility component represented by the BBWP indicator. Anytime that it gets down to extreme lows, which is defined as 15 percentile or lower, throughout the past 5 years now, we've seen an average moving board upon that on expansion of about 42.35% over the course of about 37 days. And we can also plot a first standard deviation, kind of giving us an areas of interest for the downside in this case, between about 35.25% all the way to 49.5%. Now, this signal already fired off early in November right here, and as long as the 5-day stochastic oscillator is to the downside, I look at this signal as still active. Here's the thing. We can actually forecast what price action we need to close above tonight upon closure in order to force it back onto the upside, which is going to be 18,333. This is actually on Bitstamp, but spot price action generally going to be right around there. Anyways, obviously Bitcoin is nowhere near that as of right now, and so the real question is, once we get this closure tonight, what is going to be the new pivot for the next 5-day period? Because what is interesting to me about this is that while this next one probably does remain within its downside curvature, we're going to have a few things coming into it, of interest here. One, we'll see this regression of a trend line hit, very, very likely, which has been, providing a lot of the bear market rally bounces since January of this year. So basically a full year now of like the major bounces, if you will. And then also too, if you go to the weekly, which closes on Sunday, then we can see that the weekly actually might have a chance to force the weekly stochastic oscillator to the upside as well, which would be 16,840. So if you do want a little bit of hopium, that's what I kind of be looking at right there. And what we'd expect to see is that on this next closure for the 5-day, that pivot for the stochastic oscillator is going to come down significantly, a lot closer to price action or even below price action. If you see something like that, that's going to be a good indication that Bitcoin is going to do the unthinkable right here and put in a nice, at least a nice extended bounce, maybe even a major reversal. But ultimately, as long as that condition is met, risk remains to the downside. And I want to also follow up on the 2-day time frame chart, which was relevant for CME, which obviously doesn't trade over the weekend, but a very similar setup over here. This is another volatility versus stochastic momentum signature. The difference is that the volatility component is measured by a different indicator, and also, we're looking at CME rather than spot price action, which the signals just seem to work better for. But in this case, we can see that coming into Monday, which is going to be the next closure for the 2-day time frame, there's going to be a chance to actually force the 2-day time frame stochastic oscillator to the upside as well if Bitcoin closed above 15,900 on CME. There is a slight or a little bit of a less slight discount on CME versus spot price action, but If Bitcoin does close below that pivot, then, well, risk remains to the downside, and we still likely have the next, the next area of interest to be looking at, which would be about a 39.5% move. Again, this was born upon the signal, which was in early November. So we've actually already hit the bottom side of the first standard deviation for this at 32%. So if we are going to see continuation, then we're probably looking somewhere right around like 13,000 to 13,500 or so. Here's a thing, though, that makes this at least interesting in my opinion, which is the average days. So on this signal, we've observed an average of 24 to 25 days from the actual signal given. And seeing that this signal was happening in early November here, well, 24 to 25 days would basically put us at the end of this month of November, maybe at most, because there is going to be some variance in this, early December. So that would be this next week to come. That is to say that if Bitcoin is going to continue, we very, 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 very likely see it early this next week. Monday through Wednesday, I would say is probably the most likely. Then again, like I said, there's going to be some variance, but ultimately, if we don't really see continuation by that time, going to be another good indication that we're probably going to see at least a major bounce emerge from this region, maybe even a macro reversal. I wouldn't keep my eyes closed to that just yet, just because it's just one of those things that like no one's fucking considering right now. Everyone's talking about more and more downside, and I am as well. Like, admittedly, as long as these conditions are met, like I have to be, because that's just more statistically relevant. But as time transpires without this continuation, they're naturally going to flip onto the upside, and we're probably going to get a better, a bigger bounce. Again, this one is contingent upon Monday's closure, not tonight, but Monday. So very, 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 very big areas to be aware of right there. Anyways, now that we've gone through that, let's actually go into the lower term timeframes. Basically, nothing's changed right here. Volatility on the 4-hour and the 6-hour time frame have fully reset. We've seen a full-on contraction phase, obviously. Why is that relevant? Means that we actually might see a lower term time frame move outside of the range. The range on the lower term time frames is 16,300 to the downside versus 16,800 to the upside. If Bitcoin were to close above the top side of the range, I would be looking for continuation all the way towards 17,100. That's a really big fucking area. However, for the higher term time, start to see daily closures above there, we're very likely going to see a major bounce emerge from this region into the mid to maybe even mid $18,000, maybe even $19,000 region and beyond. Until then, however, we should be aware that if it were to close below the 16,300, the same thing applies as the last few days. That would be confirming yet another lower high and a series of lower highs, and many drives of hidden bearish divergence all the way up to a 6 and 12 hour, and very likely gets a move back down to the bottom side of the range at 15,800. Obviously, that would greatly influence this chart over here and greatly influence this chart over here, as it put them both below the stochastic momentum pivots. And again, that would really start to look like we're going to see continuation into next week if that were to happen. But for right now, over the weekend, I don't really have strong opinions on especially short-term time frame price action. If you were to go and reference stochastic oscillators for spot price action, the daily is actually rather interesting here with extremely low volatility. We do see that the daily is actually vertical as long as Bitcoin's above 15,600. But then we have to compare that with the 12-hour, which is, still actually up as long as Bitcoin's above 16,450, but definitely coming into an area where we've seen a lot of rallies arrested recently. 6-hour time frame, same thing. It's actually already down as long as Bitcoin's below 16,650 basically. 4-hour time frame, same thing. Or actually, it's barely up right here. To be fair, will turn back down below 16,500, and then the hourly is down as long as Bitcoin is below 16,630. So, as far as that goes, I don't really find too much help from it. I'd just be looking at range resolution, especially on a weekend. And then realistically, it's the big focus on Monday, or I guess tonight's closure with this one, because we're going to get the next update on this one, assuming that Bitcoin doesn't pop back up above 18,300. That would make things a lot easier, obviously. But then Monday is going to be the big one, as we do get likely resolution on this, which is going to say, hey, it's either time to be looking for a much greater bounce to the upside, or it's still relevant to be looking for more downside. As of right now, these conditions are still unmet, so the downside is still a little bit more likely, all things considered, into like early mid next week. So other than that, I think that's a really good place to be leaving off on this particular video. Nice and short and sweet. Hopefully that was in some way helpful. Forgot to mention ByBit. ByBit still has their promotions going on. They even got some cool things that they're working on that's actually going to allow you to avoid FTX-like situations, which I thought was really fucking cool. But basically, when it comes to exchanges, I do think that it's very relevant to say that, hey, until these exchanges do provide a Merkle tree analysis in proof of their assets and reserve and also their liabilities, which ByBit's actually working on. I spoke with their guy the other day. It's all a question mark, right? So you do use these exchanges. We use these exchanges, with peril, right? With peril until that's proven. I happen to, I guess I shouldn't say that I trust them or anything like that. But it's a calculated risk, obviously. If you are interested in such things, so ByBit still has a pretty damn good promotion going on. They have 0% on maker fees for both spot and derivative contracts. That means that you pay nothing if you are a maker order, not a taker. But if you are a maker, then yes, you pay nothing in fees. With my link in the description below. And then also, they're actually offering $30,000 plus deposit bonus, which is kind of crazy. Now, that's going to obviously require that you actually trade a lot there. But, it tiers up, of course. Anyways, good place for me to be leaving off. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.